Hello everyone! The story of Kil'jaeden does not begin with Kil'jaeden himself, it begins with the Titans and Sargeras. The Titans had a mission to bring order to the universe. They shaped the worlds, they created life, and took out those who were against their vision. The Titans were led by the Pantheon, and their champion was called Sargeras, and his task was defending their mission against the darkness of the universe. He imprisoned countless of demons, dreadlords, and all kinds of evil creations. He performed this duty for thousands of years, but over time he began to doubt. If the universe was supposed to be all about order, then why was it fighting the Titans so much? Why was there so much evil and chaos in the world? Was that perhaps the way it's supposed to be? He talked with the other members of the Pantheon about this, but they couldn't help him. They weren't able to convince him of the truth of their mission, and Sargeras left the Pantheon. The corruption within himself, the doubt and despair, they started to manifest on the outside. Great flames burst forth out of his body, and Sargeras decided that the Titans' their mission was folly. That order was not the way to go, and that chaos was the only truth of the universe. His mission was no longer to protect the work of the Titans, quite the opposite. His mission became to destroy their work. In order to do that, he would need an army, so he made his way to the demons that he had imprisoned and he set them free. The demons in return were more than willing to join his army, and the Burning Legion was created. Sometime after this, Sargeras found a planet called Argus, and on this planet were very powerful beings, namely the Eredar. The Eredar were ruled by three leaders, namely Velen, Archimond and Kil'jaeden. Sargeras wanted them into his army, so he made contact with the leaders and he showed them a future in which they would receive incredible power, knowledge beyond their imagination, and planets full of loving subjects who would worship and honor them. Archimond and Kil'jaeden were directly on board with this plan. They were taken away by Sargeras and his powers. But the prophet Velen felt like something wasn't quite right. He meditated on this problem, and the Naaru showed him the truth of the vision. The loving subjects were actually demons. The powers given would transform them into unnatural beings, and the planets they would come across would be destroyed. Velen saw that if they joined Sargeras, that the universe would be doomed, so he talked to his fellow leaders and showed them the truth. To his surprise, they didn't care about the truth. He had perhaps expected this from Archimond, since he could sometimes easily be swayed if people played on his vanity. But Kil'jaeden, he had expected more of him. Kil'jaeden was the stronger one, he was decisive and he was wise, which is why Velen felt closer to Kil'jaeden, but even he was not convinced. They told Velen that this was just a vision in his mind, not a certain truth, and Velen realized that they now belonged to Sargeras. With the help of the Naaru, Velen managed to gather as many of his people as he could, and he was ready to escape the planet. Unknown to him was that Sargeras had already started to turn some of his people, and they nearly killed Velen and his followers. Only because of the Naaru was Velen able to escape the planet with his people, and Kil'jaeden was not happy about this. He took Velen's betrayal very personal, especially since they were so close, and he promised that he would find them and destroy them, even if it took 1,000 years. Those that had followed Velen would now start to call themselves Draenei, and Kil'jaeden was true to his word. The Draenei would find a planet to hide on, Kil'jaeden would find them, Velen would be warned in time, and they would evacuate the planet before the Burning Legion arrived. This went on for many years until the Draenei had to crash land on the planet they would call Draenor. The Naaru, who had helped them escape time and time again, had fallen ill, so there was no way of leaving the planet anymore. Kil'jaeden didn't know about this, of course, and when his scouts found the Draenei again, he decided to change his plans. Instead of sending the might of the Burning Legion, he decided to use the orcs who were already on the planet. Corrupt them, turn them against the Draenei, and let them do his dirty work. The orcs at the time were not allies with the Draenei, but they also weren't enemies. Occasionally they would trade with each other, and the Draenei had even saved 2 young orcs from an ogre. That means that Kil'jaeden couldn't just show up and tell them to murder them. He had to manipulate them, and his first target was the shaman Ner'zhul. The shamans of the orcs sometimes received a visit from their ancestors or orcs who had passed away, and Ner'zhul was no different. In fact, he was one of the most revered and powerful shamans amongst the orcs. One night, his beloved dead wife Rokan paid him a visit in a vision, and this had never happened before, even though Ner'zhul had many times wished for it. She told him that the Orcish clans could no longer live as individual clans, that they had to be united because there was a threat for the orcs on the planet. She told him that the Draenei had to be exterminated in order for the orcs to stand tall and proud to claim the planet for their own. Ner'zhul swore that he would follow the advice of the ancestors, so he gathered the clans and he shared his vision with the other shamans. But what they didn't know was that this was a false vision orchestrated by Kil'jaeden. Even so, it convinced the orcs the word of the ancestors was holy to them, so they started to work together and they trained for war. After their first attacks on the Draenei, Ner'zhul received a new vision, only this time it wasn't his beloved wife. This time it was Kil'jaeden himself. The fake Rokan had told Ner'zhul about Kil'jaeden, and she had told him that he was even above the ancestors and that Kil'jaeden was very concerned about the future of the orcs. Ner'zhul believed it all at first without question, and not just because it was his wife that told him this. He had started to enjoy being the center of attention of all the orcs, and he started to dream about the future promised by Rokan. Kil'jaeden is also very persuasive when he wants to be. They don't call him the Deceiver for nothing, but eventually Ner'zhul started to doubt. His wife no longer came to him, now it was only Kil'jaeden. And his mission was no longer in the name of the ancestors, now it was in the name of Kil'jaeden. One night, Ner'zhul dared to leave his hut and travel to Oshu'gan, and Oshu'gan is the spaceship that the Draenei crashed on Draenor with, but it also became a very holy and spiritual place for the orcs. Inside, Ner'zhul tried to communicate with the ancestors, and they actually showed themselves, but to his horror, their faces showed nothing but hatred. Hatred for the fool that he had been, for leading his people down this dark path, and the ancestors turned their back on Ner'zhul. You have to understand that the ancestors meant everything, especially to the shamans of the orcs, so on his way home, Ner'zhul tried to come up with some plan of trying to save the situation. Unfortunately for him, his apprentice Gul'dan had seen everything what happened, and he had informed Kil'jaeden. From that point on, Ner'zhul was out of the picture. Kil'jaeden knew that he wanted to betray him, so he decided to use Gul'dan instead. With Gul'dan, he didn't have to play games, since Gul'dan was more than willing to sell out his own people in exchange for more power. By order of Kil'jaeden, Gul'dan transformed the orcs into the Horde. He appointed Blackhand as the first war chief to rule the Horde, but in reality, it was Gul'dan who ruled from behind the curtains. The elements would no longer come to the shamans because even the elements condemned their actions, so the orcs embraced a new power given to them by Kil'jaeden. The first warlocks of the Horde were born, dealing terrible damage to the Draenei, while also magically aging the orcish children to bolster their forces. Near the end of the war against the Draenei, there was only one city left to conquer, Shattrath, but before they marched, they received a final gift. Kil'jaeden had sent his lieutenant Manoroth to Gul'dan, and Manoroth had spilled his own demonic blood for the orcs to drink. Ner'zhul witnessed these events, and he realized that if the orcs would drink this blood, they would become slaves forever. In a great act of defiance, he wrote a cryptic note to Durotan, warning him not to accept Gul'dan's offer. Durotan is Thrall's father and one of the few orcs who constantly spoke out against Gul'dan's plans. He was the one who was rescued by the Draenei when he was a child, and he didn't believe that exterminating them was the best course of action. This warning saved Durotan and his clan from a fate worse than death. The gift offered to the orcs gave them incredible powers and the means to destroy the Draenei once and for all, but it also made them slaves to the Burning Legion. The orcs charged the city of Shattrath with an incredible bloodlust, and they killed every man, woman and child that they could find. Kil'jaeden watched this slaughter together with his lieutenant Manoroth, and he believed that his quest was finally over. There was no way that Velen could escape this onslaught, and his brother Archimonde was whispering that he was wasting his time, so he and Manoroth left the planet behind and the orcs to their fate. What he didn't know was that Velen was not killed that day. The Draenei had left enough of their people behind to make it look like they were all dead, but in truth Velen and the rest of his people were hiding in Zangarmarsh. Velen was told by the Naru that he needed to stay alive to fight another day and that his destiny would lead his people to a better place. Velen accepted his wisdom and he tried to survive for his people, but the loss of so many of his kind did hurt him in his very soul. In the meantime, the orcs, they were not doing any better. After the final attack on Shattrath, They had no target left to use their bloodlust on, so they turned on each other. The corruption of the race had spread into the planet itself. The water had dried up and food was limited, so something had to be done. Kil'jaeden had left them to their fate after promising Gul'dan the world, but his master Sargeras had further use of the orcs. He made contact with Gul'dan, told him about Azeroth, and the first Orcish invasion would follow. The orcs would do terrible damage to Azeroth, but eventually the invasion would fail and Gul'dan lost his life. After they lost this war, it was Teron Gorefiend who came up with the plan of invading other planets besides Azeroth. They might have lost this war, but at least now they knew that there were more planets out there, planets that might not put up so much resistance. Ner'zhul was on board with this plan, so they collected the artifacts required and they made their way to the Black Temple to create these new portals. By the time that they made their way to the Black Temple, the Alliance was hot on their tail. To collect these artifacts, the Horde had to invade Azeroth for a second time, and the Alliance, they figured that they wanted to prevent the orcs from causing the same damage to other planets as they did to Azeroth. In the final moments of the story, Ner'zhul made his portals and he told the orcs who were with him to follow him to the Promised Land. They refused Ner'zhul at first, since they didn't want to leave their brothers behind, so Ner'zhul killed one of them, which motivated the rest to follow. Instead of reaching this so-called Promised Land, Ner'zhul ended in front of Kil'jaeden himself. Kil'jaeden was still pissed with him for betraying him, so he slowly ripped Ner'zhul's soul piece by piece. This caused Ner'zhul agonizing pain, and when his soul was no more, when it was all torn apart, Kil'jaeden reformed it and did it all over again. This torment went on for several years, but Kil'jaeden's master Sargeras still wanted to conquer Azeroth. In order to weaken the world and get it ready for the new invasion, Kil'jaeden decided to give Ner'zhul one more chance. He bound his soul to the Helm of Domination and he placed him on top of Icecrown, turning him into the Lich King. He also gave Ner'zhul additional powers he could use to manipulate, to control, to create the scourge that would deal massive damage to the world. At first, Ner'zhul did exactly as he was told. With his new powers, he summoned powerful individuals who could aid him with his quest, and amongst them was Kel'thuzad. Kel'thuzad heard the summons of the Lich King, and he made his way to Northrend. There at Icecrown, he offered his services in exchange for immortality and incredible power.
I was cast out by my comrades, exiled, forced to wander the frozen wastes. But I was not alone. Not entirely. The voice, now my only companion, guided me to my destination. Strange, nightmarish creatures awaited me at the entrance. I felt my blood run cold as Icecrown itself. Inside, I bore witness to horrific acts, demonstrations of power that could be mine for the asking. Terrified, I ran, but did not get far. All too soon, my choice was made. Too late did I realize that such power does not come without a price.
Ner'zhul was very pleased with this, and he sent Kel'thuzad back home. Back in Lordaeron, Kel'thuzad worked and he formed the Cult of the Damned. This cult worshipped the Lich King, worshipped Ner'zhul, and they worked on spreading the plague.
My life for Ner'zhul.
This plague would not only kill the citizens of Lordaeron, it would also turn them into the undead, into the scourge that would turn on their own people. Everything went exactly as planned. Arthas found out about the plague, he killed Kel'thuzad, he purged Stratholme, followed Mal'Ganis back to Northrend, and he picked up the blade Frostmourne. Frostmourne was cast out of the block of ice that imprisoned Ner'zhul, and Ner'zhul was able to communicate with Arthas through the blade. The blade also took a piece of his soul with him and turned Arthas into an agent of the Lich King, into one of the first new Death Knights. For months, Arthas roamed the land of Northrend, listening to the whispers of Ner'zhul until he returned home. Once home, he murdered his own father, destroyed his own kingdom, and weakened the defenses of Azeroth for the invasion of the Legion. By a cruel twist of fate, he was then told to resurrect Kel'thuzad, since Kel'thuzad had the power to open the way for the Burning Legion. Once that was done, once the Sunwell was destroyed and Kel'thuzad was a Lich, they moved to Dalaran, stole the Book of Medivh, and they used this to summon Archimonde into our world.
Come forth, Lord Archimonde. Enter this world and let us bask in your power. despair. Doom has come to this world. You have done well, little Lich. My plan worked perfectly.
Lord Archimond, all the preparations have been made.
Very well, Tichondrius. Since the Lich King is of no further use to me, you Dreadlords will now command the Scourge.
As you wish, Lord Archimond.
Soon, I will order the invasion to begin. But first, I will make an example of these paltry wizards by crushing their city into the ashes of history.
This has got to be a joke. What happens to us now?
Be patient, young Death Knight. The Lich King foresaw this as well. You may yet have a part to play in his grand design.
This was all part of Kil'jaeden's plan, and it seemed like Ner'zhul's part was played. But Ner'zhul was smart and he was powerful. He had bigger plans than this, and he wasn't about to spend the rest of his life trapped in a block of ice. He imagined that he could outsmart Kil'jaeden and use Arthas to set himself free. He told Arthas to find Illidan and point him towards the skull of his old apprentice, towards the skull of Gul'dan.
I am free after 10,000 years. Yet still my own brother thinks I am a villain. I'll show him my true power. I'll show him that the demons have no hold over me.
Are you certain of that, Demon Hunter? Are you certain your will is your own?
You reek of death, human. You'll regret approaching me.
Come then. You'll find that we're evenly matched.
Like this forever. What is it you truly want?
The Dreadlord who commands this undead army is called Tichondrius. He controls a powerful warlock artifact called the Skull of Gul'dan. It is responsible for corrupting these forests.
And you wish for me to steal it? Why?
Let's just say that I have no love for Tichondrius. And the Lord I serve would benefit from the Legion's downfall.
Why should I believe anything you say, little human?
My master sees all, Demon Hunter. He knows that you've sought power your whole life. Now it lies within your grasp. Seize it, and your enemies will be undone.
What? Who are you? Let's see how confident you are against one of your own kind, Dreadlord.
Kil'jaeden found out about this. He found out that Ner'zhul had sent Arthas to Illidan and that Ner'zhul was planning to set himself free. As part of his own plans, Kil'jaeden talked with Illidan and he told him to take out the Lich King.
Many months after the Legion's defeat at the Battle of Mount Hyjal, I was visited by one of the last great demon lords, Kil'jaeden.
Illidan, in the past you have been both friend and foe to the Burning Legion. But by consuming the skull of Gul'dan, you sealed our defeat in this world. I come to offer you a second chance to serve us.
What would you have me do, Great One?
My creation, the Lich King, has betrayed me. He dared to break the pact that binds him to my will. But his spirit still lies trapped inside the frozen throne of Icecrown. Destroy it for me, and I will grant you your heart's desire.
It shall be done, Great One. It shall be done.
Illidan did his very best to destroy the Lich King, but his brother Malfurion stopped him, since his spell didn't just destroy Ner'zhul, it was about to destroy Northrend as well. At that point in the story, Teron the Whisperwind was missing, and since Illidan still loved her, he decided to help his brother with finding her. This means that he betrayed Kil'jaeden, that he didn't fulfill his mission, so once they found Tyrande, he fled the planet. He feared the wrath of Kil'jaeden, so Illidan decided it was a good idea to hide on Outland. Outland, formerly known as Draenor.
Given my failure, I fled to this desolate place to evade Kil'jaeden's wrath. Now, if I am to remain here in exile, we will need to ensure that Kil'jaeden's agents have been cleansed from the land.
Naturally, Kil'jaeden found him and he offered him one more chance.
Foolish little mongrel. You failed to destroy the frozen throne as I commanded. And still you thought to hide from me in this forsaken backwater. I thought you to be more cunning, Illidan.
Kil'jaeden, I was merely set back. I was attempting to bolster my forces. The Lich King will be destroyed. I promise you.
Indeed. Still, these servitors you've gathered show some promise. I will give you one last chance, Illidan. Destroy the frozen throne, or face my eternal wrath.
Perhaps hiding here was not the most prudent decision.
With his final chance, the race to Icecrown was on. Both Arthas and Illidan tried to reach the top of Icecrown, but in the end it was Arthas who defeated Illidan in combat and merged with Ner'zhul. Arthas was in such a hurry that he just left Illidan in the snow to die, but Illidan didn't die. Kil'jaeden's Sunstrider and Lady Vashj took Illidan back to Outland, and there they prepared their forces in the hope of standing against Kil'jaeden. They knew that one day Kil'jaeden would come to punish them for their failure, so they wanted to be ready and they spent their time preparing. In a strange twist of events during the Burning Crusade, the punishment never came. Instead, Kil'jaeden decided to leave Illidan to his fate and he recruited Kil'jaeden's Sunstrider to his cause. According to Magister Felendorn, Kil'jaeden was aware of Illidan's insanity after getting his ass kicked, so he switched paymasters accordingly. Apparently Kil'jaeden had enough of manipulating and letting others do his work. This time he decided to take matters into his own hands. Kil'jaeden's Sunstrider had spent his time in Outland collecting magic in Netherstorm, and they transported that magic to the Sunwell Plateau, not to restore the Sunwell, but to create a portal which would allow Kil'jaeden access into our world. They'd also captured Envina, and her story deserves a video on its own. The short version is that when Arthas used the Sunwell to resurrect Kel'thuzad, he didn't corrupt it entirely. A part of its power was found by the red dragon Coriastras, and he transformed its power into a living being, Envina, and he did this to hide her away from the Scourge. Unfortunately, they found out who she really was, what she really was, and she was captured by Kil'jaeden. They dragged her to the Sunwell Plateau, and they planned to use her power to power the portal and bring Kil'jaeden into our world. Thankfully, we found out about all of this, and we made our way to the Sunwell Plateau to stop Kil'jaeden from ever setting foot on land.
All my plans have led to this. The expendable have perished. So be it. Now I shall succeed where Sargeras could not. I will bleed this wretched world, and secure my place as the true master of the Burning Legion. The end has come! Let the unraveling of this world commence! The powers of the Sunwell turn against me! What have you done? What have you done?
This defeat is not the end of Kil'jaeden. We didn't kill him that day, we just pushed him back down his portal to wherever he currently is. It's interesting to note that Kil'jaeden says,
Now I shall succeed where Sargeras could not. I will bleed this wretched world, and secure my place as the true master of the Burning Legion.
This implies that there's a bit of a power struggle within the Burning Legion, and perhaps that Kil'jaeden isn't satisfied with just sitting at Sargeras' side. He apparently wants to rule it all. Even Chris Madsen said that this defeat only pissed him off, and now taking Azeroth is no longer just another mission, now it's personal. You can be certain that one day we will have to face off against Kil'jaeden in his full glory. A couple of you already asked me if we will see Kil'jaeden in Warlords of Draenor. At BlizzCon they said that Gul'dan is indeed on the phone with Kil'jaeden and that Garrosh is going to change one of the key moments in the Orcish history. He is going to prevent the Orcs from drinking Manoroth's blood, preventing them from ever becoming slaves to the Burning Legion. We don't know what other events are changed, we don't know what is going to happen like it happened in our timeline, but it is possible that we might have to fight Kil'jaeden. However, in my opinion, there is a small problem with that scenario. Even if we defeat Kil'jaeden on Iron Horde Draenor, we'd still have to deal with Kil'jaeden on our planet. So what kind of challenge or how much fun would it be to face him twice? Just imagine that we already defeated him in one expansion. What kind of a threat could he still be after we return home? This is just my take on it. For all we know, they are going to use the Burning Legion. We are going to see a full-powered Kil'jaeden. We'll just have to wait to find out.
Mortal heroes, your victory here today was foretold long ago. My brother's anguished cry of defeat will echo across the universe, bringing renewed hope to all those who still stand against the burning crusade. As the Legion's final defeat draws ever nearer, stand proud in the knowledge that you have saved worlds without number from the flame.
Next week, since we're on the subject of the Burning Legion, I want to take a look at Archimonde's story, but for now, I'll have to end this video. Thank you very much for watching everyone, subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!